everyone, my name is Amber, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the series that I want to finish, definitely will finish in 2023. So one of my goals for this year was to try to finish off some series because I have a horrible habit of reading up to the last book and then not finishing it. I'm really good at starting series, I'm fairly good at following up and reading the second book in a trilogy, but I never read the last one and I don't know why that is. I think it's probably because I don't want to be let down. I've put so much time into these series and effort and brain power, and oftentimes I've also recapped them for recaptains, and I worry that the payoff isn't going to be as good. So I've got 13 book series here that I really want to focus on in 2023. Some of them are quite old and they've been on my TBR and I've been in the middle of them for absolute years, like 7 years, some of them. It's really embarrassing. Others are a bit newer. I didn't want to make a massive list because I didn't think that was doable, but I think I can probably finish one series a month. That should be okay. I think that's definitely doable and realistic, and if I do manage to finish more, then go me, that's absolutely fantastic. But these are the ones I definitely want to get to, and if I don't, you can shout at me next year. First one, which may cause an uproar, is Broken Earth. I didn't finish this trilogy in 2022 even though I said that I would. I really want to, but it really intimidates me because I gave the 5th season I think 4.5 stars. Loved it so much, and that was mainly because of the twist. And I'm thinking the other books can't have the same twists and impact on me because that's not doable. So I'm a bit worried I'm not going to love this trilogy as much as the first book because it's not going to be as twisty. I mean, some other things might happen, of course, but book 2 is definitely not going to have the same shocking impact as book 1, which is what I want. And then book 3 is mainly going to be wrapping things up. So I don't know, that's where my headspace is at with that series. If you have read this series, let me know in the comments if this is still as fast-paced and intriguing as the first book, and if there are still revelations that I can look forward to. I know realistically there must be revelations because that's the whole point of a book series, but I've just got it into my head that it's not going to be as good. So tell me in the comments below if the rest of the trilogy is as good as the first book. The next series I really want to finish is Shades of Magic, I think it's called. The book series by V.E. Schwab. So I've read the first 2 books in this series. I actually got the first book as an ARC years ago and I enjoyed it. It's not my all-time favourite series or anything, but it was alright. I just have never read the last book, mainly because it's enormous, but also other books just kept coming out. And I don't recap books, or I don't recap final books in a series for recaptains. I only go up to the penultimate book because readers don't need a refresher of the final book in a series. And I think that's probably why I haven't finished this one off, because I was too focused on other series at the time. So I think I can get this one from the library and I'm hoping to do that in maybe February or March. That's my game plan for that one anyway, and I hope it ends well. And I think there's going to be like a spin-off trilogy coming out this year, or the first book will be, so it's a good time to finish this one off, I think. The next one I want to finish is an old school YA book, or old school, it's like middling, and that's the Red Queen series. So I've read all the way up to the final book, Warstorm. I did start Warstorm at one point and then I chickened out in case it wasn't very good. I'm not sure I would like this nowadays, to be honest, because it's a fun YA series about people with special powers, kind of like X-Men but in fantasy format, in a fantasy world. The first book has a bit of a twist and introduces you to this world. Books 2 and 3 I barely remember. There were some big events happening in it and a really evil villain, if I remember correctly, that people were shipping the main character, which I don't agree with. But it was enjoyable and really fast-paced, and I think sometimes I just need something that's kind of not trashy, because I hate calling books trashy, books that you don't really have to think too much about while still getting like the fantasy superpowers fix that you need. Does that make sense? So I do want to finish this off in 2023. I'm not sure how to go about doing that because this book is no longer available at my library and I don't really want to buy it. I'm a bit stuck on what to do here. I don't know if I can maybe find it on eBay for quite cheap, but that will mean adding another book to my TBR. So I'm a bit conflicted and that's putting me off, but I will see. I can see what I can do. Maybe my friends are giving it away. Who knows? Fourth series I really want to finish is Throne of Glass. I got all the way up to and including Queen of Shadows, which I've mentioned multiple times before, and then I stopped booktubing. A few of my friends did as well, and we would often read this series together when the newest books came out, but because we all stopped reading for a time, that didn't really happen with Empire of Storms. So I stopped reading the series, and then I heard that Chaol had his own book and I was like, why on earth are you doing this? I hate it. But it is one that I do want to marathon, and I was meant to do it last year. What has put me off of this, because of course there's something that's put me off, something entirely random, is I want to do a reading vlog for it where I reread the first 4 books and then finish off the series. I don't want to do that all in one go. I don't want to read them all in one week because I think that'll be too much, but that also annoys me because then separate books will be in different monthly wrap-ups, and again, this is just something like in my head that I've told myself that I can't talk about these books separately in wrap-ups and then do a final reading vlog at the end where I'm doing like live reading, because I worry that people are going to be bored or I'm going to bore myself, or I don't know. It's silly, and it's my channel and I can do what I want, which is what I'm telling myself. So I'm probably going to do that fairly early on in 2022. I should probably start anyway, because there are like 7 books in this series, so I should probably get a move on. I also want to finish off the 7 Realms series. This is a YA fantasy series that I was really enjoying at the time, and I haven't finished the final book. My issue with this one is that I can't remember what happened in book 3, and I didn't recap it at the time, which was silly of me. I should have done. So I probably need to go back and reread and recap book 3 before getting to book 4. So that's something, again, I want to do in early 2023, because otherwise I will keep putting it off. And I've got no problem rereading books. I actually quite enjoy it. It just feels a little strange to me to only reread the 3rd book instead of starting the series again, but I don't really need to do that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit conflicted about what to do there, but I do want to finish it off. The next one is actually a series I only started in 2022, so it hasn't been on my list for ages, and that is the Blood Air Trilogy. This one, I read the first book, and I read it quite early on last year, I think, and I really enjoyed it. I gave the first book 4 stars, immediately bought books 2 and 3, and then didn't carry on with it. So I do need to read both books in 2023 because I want to finish off the whole trilogy. I'm thinking about marathoning them while I have the momentum, while I'm loving it. Although marathoning doesn't really always work for me, so it very much depends on the series. We will see how that goes. Another one, which is a more recent trilogy that I loved, I gave the first book 5 stars, is Crown of Feathers. I've only read the first book. I loved it. It's a fantasy book series about Phoenix Riders, which is something that I think YA has been lacking. And I bought book 2 immediately. I didn't buy book 3 yet. I didn't read it because I was worried that it wasn't going to live up to the first book. It's another 5th season situation, I think. But this is one that I definitely want to finish in 2023 because there's no reason not to, unless I hate book 2, which I'm really hoping doesn't happen. Then I also want to finish off the Greenbone Saga. I read book 1 years ago. I can't remember when, probably 2018, 2019, and I just never carried on with it because I only gave the first book 3.5 stars. I didn't really feel compelled to read the second book right away, and I've kept putting it off, but I really think that I will enjoy this trilogy overall because the second book sounds really emotionally devastating, and then book 3 I think follows different generations of the same family, and I love generational stories, so I think this is one that I could really enjoy. I just need to get to it, and they're also quite long, so that's quite intimidating. I also really want to finish off the Drowning Empire trilogy. The final book is coming out this year, and I've only read book 1, so I'm not too far behind. I'm sort of up to date with it. This is another fantasy series, and I've quite enjoyed the first book. I think I gave it 3.5 or 4 stars. It just wasn't amazing, and it didn't really compel me to read the second book right away, but now that I know that the third book is coming out in 2023, I can definitely carry on with it. I want to finish off Monk and Robot by Becky Chambers. I've read the first book in this short novella duology. Haven't read the second one just because the second book is really expensive and I didn't get an ARC copy like I did with the first. So Becky Chambers is one of my all-time favourite authors. Love her. So this is definitely one that I do want to read. It's an expensive hardback, and that's literally the only thing that is putting me off reading this book, but I will do it in 2023. Another series that is finishing up in 2023 is the One of Us is Lying series. The third book is finally coming out, I think, in the summer, and I'm up to date with it. I'm just waiting for the next one to come out. I quite like this thriller series. I think it got better as time went on. The second book was so much better than the first, I think because the author was a more practiced one by the time the second book came out, and I do tend to read Karen M. McManus's books as soon as they release, so this one shouldn't be too hard for me to finish off. The next 2 are really old series, so you may not have heard of them. The first one is Arclight, which I think was like a dystopian sci-fi fantasy series. It's a duology. I've read the first one and I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it like 4 or 5 stars back in the day, but I never read the second book because, again, I'm really bad at finishing series and I worry that they're not going to be as good. I do need to reread the first one because I read this before I started recaptions, so I never recapped the first one, so I need to do that and then read the second. I can do that in February, I think. And then finally, the 13th book series I want to finish off is Asheville by Mike Mullen. So this one was one that I didn't think would be getting a third book, but it turned out to be popular enough that it did. So this is a post-apocalyptic story about the supervolcano in Yellowstone National Park erupting, and it causes absolute chaos in the US. So the main character is trying to survive an apocalyptic winter. I really enjoyed the first 2 books in this trilogy, and I thought it would end there, but there is a third book, so I don't know what I'm going to do here because I don't think I've recapped the second book because I thought that it was the end of the duology. So I'm gonna have to get my hands on the second one from somewhere. It might still be at my granddad's, but I'm pretty sure I donated it, and because it's not a super popular series and it's quite old, it's quite difficult to get my hands on, so I'm gonna have to see what I can do there. But I do want to reread the first 2 books before reading the third and finally finishing off the series. So those were all the series that I definitely have to finish in 2023. Like I said, if I read one roughly a month, it shouldn't be too difficult to finish off. I do have one of these books from one of these series on my TBR for January. I definitely need to ramp things up to meet this goal by the end of 2023, but I'm not worrying about that right now. I just want to make a start, and to do that I'm going to read the second book in the Blood Air Trilogy and then maybe the third right after. Because I own it, I might as well marathon it. So yeah, those are the series that I want to finish off. Let me know if you've read any of them, what you thought of them. Please encourage me in the comments to actually finish it off, or them off, because I really need all the encouragement I can get. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye.